Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Funkaby here for MMOBomb, and welcome to the Free-to-Play Podcast, episode 63. I am, of course, your new host, filling in for Magic Man, and with me, we have the always beautiful Hannah Noble, our new Free-to-Play Weekly host. How are you doing, Hannah?
I'm doing great. The first episode that I hosted of Free to Play Weekly is actually up on the site now and on the YouTube, so go check it out. But in the meantime, I've just been gaming it up, so I really can't complain.
Great. So we're both noobs to the podcast. Well, I should say I'm slightly less of a noob because I did have my hand held by Magic Man as he led me through one episode of podcast way in the back. But we're going to be noobs here. We're going to go ahead and get right into it. Now, Hannah, all new hosts and thus all new co-hosts have to go ahead and talk about what game got them into gaming, what was their main sort of game that got them into the world of MMOs and free-to-play, and what are you currently playing right now. So go ahead and tell me.
I actually first got into MMOs through the glorious game that probably most of you guys have at least heard of, and if you haven't, you might live under a rock, so I would consider moving. But I've been playing World of Warcraft since it first came out. I've played every expansion pack, and currently all of my time is spent trying to learn the ropes of League of Legends, but I play Star Wars Old Republic on the daily because I like lightsabers. I don't know about you guys.
Lightsabers are pretty cool. I do enjoy lightsabers, although I was very disappointed by SWTOR. That's a whole nother topic, though. In fact, we'll get into the EA bashing later on in this podcast.
Yay.
So, now let me ask you. So, World of Warcraft, which it was also my first major MMO. I played RuneScape for a little bit, but I mean, that doesn't count. It's RuneScape, and it was a long time ago. But World of Warcraft, it was my first MMO. It kind of just opened up the audience, or opened up the general public to the idea of MMOs, and from there I just obviously transitioned into free to play, all that kind of stuff. And what class did you play in World of Warcraft?
I'm a paladin for life. It used to be really OP, which I loved, and then they adjusted it, so it's slightly less gratifying now, but I'm still a hardcore paladin.
I played a Retribution Paladin when it wasn't cool to play a Retribution Paladin. That was like level 70, because I came in at the end of original vanilla and started playing really once BC came out. But Paladin and BC, Retribution Paladin was mana intensive and did piddly squat DPS. If you weren't a tank or a healer, you were doing it wrong. But I did it wrong consistently, and I loved it. So I have no issues playing a Paladin. That made your brownie points in my book go up like 10 score. So
it's either hit or miss. Sometimes I tell people I'm a Paladin player, and they're like, you are a horrible person. You suck. Get out of my face. Because they're so hardcore major tank. But for me, it's the class I always had the most fun playing with. And in my opinion, that's what counts.
Awesome. Now let me ask you, Hannah, are you Horde or Alliance?
Always Alliance. Only because I like being an elf, and I like being a cute elf at that. Call me a female gamer, if you will.
So wait.
I want a fun little elf running around my screen, not a scary orc.
You're an elf paladin? You're an elf paladin?
Absolutely.
So you did that recently then?
Very recently. Before I was a Draenei, because I thought it was amazing that I could have an alien in Warcraft, which seems to be, a very mythical type of game. So it was fun to kind of get that sci-fi aspect in there, but recently entirely elf.
You're a space goat.
Oh, totally.
Bah, okay. Oh, man, I can't believe. Oh, we're starting this episode off classy.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
We're starting this episode off classy, doing goat noises. All right. So let's go ahead and just roll that right into... Oh, my God. Let's go ahead and roll that right into the news here. The news of this week, starting with Cyanide revealing a new tabletop game. Now, for those of you who don't know who Cyanide is, I wouldn't blame you. I didn't know about Cyanide until just recently. Cyanide was the creators of the PC version of the very popular tabletop game Blood Bowl, which has been played for many years. It's been around for quite some time.
A long time.
Yeah, for Games Workshop, I believe, is the creator of Blood Bowl. They also make, I believe, Warhammer and several other ones. Now, Cyanide's creating a new strategy game, their first free-to-play strategy game, called Dogs of War Online. Now, we got a little bit of screenshots, we have a little bit of information about it, but not terribly much right now. It looks like you get to choose from 3 different factions. They have the Ram, which is in like an army of undead minions, Lion, a band of noble, but not really knights, that's more about greed and deceit. And then we have what's called Wolfen, which obviously is some kind of predator because wolf's in the name. But
So really, there are no good guys in this game.
yeah, there's no good guys. It's just all about ripping each other's faces off, which I'm okay with. I actually really like turn-based strategy games. Do you play a lot of turn-based strategy games?
I do. I used to play them more frequently in the past. Recently, I've just been completely consumed with League of Legends and Star Wars, as I said, but I really like the mechanics of that. I like planning out my next move. I like to strategize. I'm a planner and I like to think ahead, so this definitely is my ken and where I feel really comfortable.
So what turn-based strategy games did you actually play?
Oh my gosh, which ones have I not played? Most recently, I
give me
actually
your top
played
three.
one
Give
on
me your top three.
Xbox, and the turn-based strategy game that I fell in love with most recently, it was actually one that was based completely on science fiction, which I thought was really cool, so I think it's fun to run around and be an alien and do all of that. But where did you exactly get your start in turn-based? Has this been an old love for you or a new interest?
This is a super old love. So I got into turn-based strategy games in 4th grade with Heroes and Might and Magic 2. So Heroes of Might and Magic 2 was a game that my math teacher in 4th grade introduced to the class. And during lunch and when we had free time in class, all of us would pile on top of our Windows 95 computers with big giant CRT monitors in the corner of the classroom, and we would all play against our teacher. And then eventually Heroes of Might and Magic 3 came out, which I believe was in my 5th grade, and we played that like even more, and that was like extremely popular. It was huge back then. And then I kind of took a break from it for a while, honestly. After that, I didn't really play strategy games until recently with like XCOM, Enemy Unknown. That came out. That sort of like reinvigorated my interest in turn-based strategy games. I played
I think I was playing Civilization in 4th grade. That was my turn-based back in the day.
I played Civilization too, but honestly, it wasn't, I didn't really like the political system back then. However, I am playing Civ 5 now, and I am enjoying that quite a lot. I feel like they've streamlined a lot of the stuff that was sort of hard to do with a game like Civilization back in like whatever year that was when that came out. Like Civilization 2, I think.
Ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. Yeah, I didn't really, I wasn't like a huge fan of Civilization, but it definitely was. It was between Civilization and Heroes of Might and Magic back then. But Dogs of War Online, they have some pretty interesting little mechanics. They talk about how a player has to demonstrate leadership qualities in order to lead their units in a battle. I mean, usually you think about just like collecting units and creating your army, but actually being able to lead them effectively is sort of like a whole new concept. And they don't really give a lot of details about it in the press release they gave, but it did mention that if you were a poor leader, the soldiers that were in your army could desert the army, there could be tension between soldiers, and even theft.
And ransacking.
Yeah, ransacking too. Now, the ransacking, though, is if you're a effective leader and you send them on missions in between, I guess, the battles.
There's the kicker.
Yeah, that's the kicker. So ransacking is okay as long as your leader tells them to do it. As long as that happens, then, hey, pillage all to your heart's content.
So basically, you kind of want to be a tyrant in this game.
Kinda, I guess. It's kind of interesting. Like, they say that you want to send them on missions so that they don't, create this tension. But they don't really say how that actually works. So we don't know if that's like a offline sort of like progressive sort of thing where it's kind of like, for example, EVE Online, the spaceship MMO, you set up skills and the skills train while you're gone. Same with a lot of other sort of strategy games that you train stuff while you're offline.
It's a common theme.
Yeah. So I'm curious to know if that's how they're approaching this, or if they can embellish upon it a little bit and make it much more of an interesting mechanic where you have to send them off to different things so that they can maybe pillage and bring back other loot or units. I kind of want it to be where you have to kind of keep them engaged. Otherwise, it's sort of like, I don't know, SimCity, where if you leave them going for days, they'll just pee themselves or something. You gotta like watch them or something like that.
It all disassembles. And, I actually saw the screenshots, but they don't seem to give away too much. So I'm really excited to see what new information gets leaked going forward.
Yeah, it's obviously very fantasy-based with the 3 factions.
Definitely.
The aesthetics are actually really nice. I'm really impressed by the graphics of the game. So I'm really looking forward to it. I hope it is as good as I would expect it to be, especially from Cyanide, who works a lot with turn-based strategy games. So, moving on, we have our next piece of news, which deals with Naughty Dog. Now, Naughty Dog is, of course, the creators of Uncharted series. They also created Crash Bandicoot, but that is a wholly different thing. But
Crash. That was my childhood.
Crash Bandicoot was the best game ever, and it made me extremely hate running away from, like, giant boulders. Like, that was, like, I had nightmares of running away from boulders and jumping over, like, crevasses and whatnot.
See, it made me want to eat mangoes all day. And I'm allergic to them, so well done.
Was that fruit? Was that actually... It looked like apples to me. Like,
you know what? I've actually heard somebody else say they thought it was a guava or a papaya. I guess it's more subjective.
I don't know. Can you do the mask voice? Can you do the mask voice when you get it out?
A whoobadaga. I can do that so well. Whoobadaga. I remember. And when you got that gold mask, the worst thing in the world was when that got hit. You're like, no, my mask.
The gold mask, no. You know, it's funny. They're actually there's rumors I saw on Reddit, they're making a new Crash Bandicoot. There was a small slip-up. Yes. No. A teaser website was revealed accidentally, and then they took it down. So, but it obviously was like about Crash Bandicoot, and so I am extremely hopeful for a new game. I missed that series quite a lot. I probably put the most, in terms of like PlayStation 1 series, I probably put the most hours into Crash Bandicoot. But this is actually not dealing with that. This is dealing with Uncharted 3. And that is
we kind of went on a long tangent there.
We can, about Crash Bandicoot, we can go on as many tangents as you like. I love that series.
Well, let's bring it back to some MMO action.
Yeah, the Uncharted 3. So with the Uncharted 3, they're doing a free-to-play sort of multiplayer component. And what that means is Uncharted 3 is, of course, a PlayStation 3 exclusive. And PlayStation, out of all the consoles, have really started to put forward effort into bringing in free-to-play titles. Some of the big ones that we know are the only big one I know is CCP, who created EVE Online. Their free-to-play shooter, Dust 154. 514, not
Dust 514. 514. You're a little bit dyslexic with your numbers there.
Just a little bit. So yeah, that's been the only really contender for a little bit. But Naughty Dog wanted to put out their own sort of rendition. They put out the multiplayer of Uncharted 3. It is essentially a standalone component. You would get the same multiplayer if you bought the game, but players can play it for free, and they can level up and play with all the other people, etc. But it's not really
always for free.
Yeah, it is for free. You can play for free, but it limits you in terms of how much you can actually level up. You can level up to, I believe, level 15 in the game before you would have to start paying for like unlock to get higher level. In fact, you can pay $4.99 to get an unlock, but that doesn't unlock the whole level system. It only unlocks you to like level 70 or 25 or something. I forget. Like
I think
70.
It's level 25 that unlocks you to.
Yeah, it unlocks level 25, and then you can unlock it further to 70. 70 is the cap, I believe. So
75, I think, is $19.99, which in my opinion is a ludicrously high amount, but that's like neither here nor there.
That is literally like an indie standalone shooter. Like I think I bought like Natural Selection 2 for that much. Like if you're gonna, not only is Uncharted 3 a game that's already been out for a little bit, but if you're gonna basically charge someone for a bargain bin shooter, that you're only getting. All you're getting is the full amount of level unlocks. You're not getting any of the co-op stuff. That's separate. They're offering everything sort of chopped up into pieces. It's a freemium title, essentially. It's a bona fide freemium title. And I kind of worry that, you have Dust, and then we have Uncharted 3 now. We have the freemium, and then we have pretty much completely free-to-play. And so I'm kind of worried that like developers are going to start going towards the freemium sort of stuff. I mean, we've kind of gotten away from that. It's been proven that doesn't fly really at all for free-to-play games on the PC now. But we don't really know whether or not that will continue for, console, because it's essentially a new free-to-play market. What do you think? Which one?
I think it's pretty much indicative of the game. I think that there are some games that have tremendous cult followings, like we've seen on Xbox and PlayStation. And I think that those games, people are willing to throw their money into it because they want to be immersed in that world more. So, I think it'll be interesting to see here on out what other companies and what other developers try and use the freemium model and really see where it takes off from there. But it's definitely going to be indicative of the game and the community of people that play that game.
What? Let me ask you, because Uncharted 3 is obviously a series that a lot of people hold dear. What series that is like console specific would you like to see have like a free to play component?
Absolutely Mass Effect. I have played through the second one over 20 times, which sounds ridiculous, but I'm just obsessed with the world. I like having my own spaceship. I mean, pretty much any extra content that I could get with that game, no matter how much it cost, I would drop the money to do it. Call me crazy.
Drop the money, but if it's free to play, then you don't have to drop any money.
If it's free to play, then you don't even have to ask me twice. I'd be there at a millisecond.
You know, it's funny though. Like you bring up a good point in that the fans of series, of course, would drop money, you know, to get unlocked or whatever like that. But you figure in this case with Uncharted 3, people who already want to play Uncharted 3 have the whole game, right? So if you want to bring in new players, you know, why would you restrict them in what they have access? If anything, you're supposed to like impress them, you know, and give them a lot to work with so that they want to buy the full games for the single player experience. Because Uncharted 3 is very much like a single player game to begin with. I always looked at the franchise as that, and multiplayer was sort of just like the extra component to it. So I'm not really sure in terms of how that'll work out with people who weren't already fans, because those that were already fans, I'm assuming, already own the game. But hopefully,
and have already been playing it.
Yes, and have already been playing it. That is true. But maybe it's just their way of sort of trying to spruce up the servers, keep people playing and active. That maybe the servers were dying and they thought they needed more player. But to me, it honestly looks like a cash grab. And they kind of acted that way when they wrote the article. They talked about it serving up these pieces as like caveats, you know, just like serving them up to hope to get the most bang for the buck. So I don't know.
As a player, that would definitely deter me if I started playing some content and then found out I had to pay $20 to level up all the way. I could get an entire new world in World of Warcraft for that kind of money.
That is true. And, I mean, granted, you can play a shooter without leveling up. It's not like, you know, you need the levels in order to be good. But it's still annoying nonetheless. And I still would feel like I was always like, if I ever lost a game because someone killed me with something that I didn't have access to, that would peeve the crap out of me.
Oh, definitely.
I would not enjoy that a lot. And that's what we went through as people who were on the frontier of free-to-play games when free-to-play was sort of new. We went through that. We went through developers thinking like they could treat us like second-class citizens. So I don't take kindly to developers that do that. But going ahead and moving on.
The interwebs rule everything now, so perception is going to be reality for these companies. If people don't like what they're seeing, they're going to have to change it up, or else they're going to get scrutinized online.
They're not going to spend their money. That's the simple it is.
Exactly.
Supply and demand. If you're not supplying something people want, nobody's going to demand it. So going on to our third little news topic here, we're going to talk about, of course, Warhammer Online Wrath of Heroes. Oh no, the MMO/arena game that no one wanted to make is shutting down. Oh, no.
We're all so sad.
Oh my gosh, no. Yeah, so raise your hand if you didn't expect this one, you know. Oh my gosh, this game...
I believe I hear crickets chirping, actually.
Yes. No one is raising their hand. Everybody saw this coming. The handwriting was on the wall when this game went into closed beta. This game, oh my gosh. So what exactly is Warhammer Online Wrath of Heroes? If you've never heard of it, if you haven't, I don't blame you. It was basically a battle arena. It was kind of, in my opinion, trying to take a little bit of the thunder, trying to basically ride on the coattail rather, of Dota and League of Legends and other arena-based games, you know? It kind of felt like a MOBA sort of thing, obviously without like the minions and stuff, but it definitely felt like an arena sort of PvP. It was definitely aimed at a PvP audience, but it kind of just felt like old MMO PvP mechanics stuck in just an arena. Did you ever play it? Did you ever like look at video of it?
You know, I did, and then the person that I had played with, they actually took away the week I tried to play it, so I kind of just rage quit after that.
Really? Now, what do you mean they took away the week?
They took away the hero that I had started using, actually, and I heard that they had taken away quite a few heroes weekly that they had initially in the game. I think there were what was it, 16 to 18 or something?
Yeah.
But yeah, they started shutting him down and locking him out, and the hero that I had tried wasn't there the next time I tried to play, so I
And
quit.
they made everything so expensive in the game. I noticed that. Like, to get a hero, it took like weeks of grinding or something like that. They basically force you into buying heroes in the game in order for you to be able to actually use the ones you wanted to use. And some of them were blatantly overpowered. I remember like the little goblin, the green goblin dude. He was like a healer. He could spam heals nonstop. The game didn't have any sort of like mana system. It just used a cooldown based system where you basically would spam your spells, and there wasn't any skill shots. I know it was primarily just based on around tab targeting. So you target someone, you hit an ability, and then it hits everybody in that area. So I just would constantly see him at the top of his at the top of the leaderboards, just because he could heal, he could do a lot of damage, he could buff his allies, he was everything. And yeah, it was of course Mythic / BioWare Studio that created that, and they're actually not even focusing on PC games anymore now that they're shutting this down. It's scheduled to shut down, I believe, at the end of this month, and then after that they're going to be focusing on the mobile market, quote unquote relocating resources. I actually did the air quotes even though no one's here and you guys can't see me.
Well, that was very effective.
Yes. So is it pretty obvious why they shut down? I think everybody knows why it's pretty obvious. Like, subpar mechanics, super high price things.
I think that everyone can kind of read between the lines with that. But if you can't, I mean, anytime where you have something that's that expensive and honestly the gameplay just wasn't developed as, I would say, wholly as their plan to charge people was, that's not really a recipe for success in my book.
No, it's certainly a recipe for disaster. One cool thing I will have to say, but I mean it's not really a redeeming factor, is they're going to release all of the 18 heroes that they were in progress so that you could actually play them like before they were finished. So if you even cared an iota about the game or even have the game still installed, you can still try out 18 of the new heroes that weren't released, that they had in various stages of development. I'm curious though if that like won't have any textures or be missing like animations. Like, and when it says various stages of development, like what does that mean? Like you're just gonna put them out? It's like a blob. Like, oh, this
are we
is
going to see 8-bit characters running around on our screens?
Yeah, we're just gonna see like a cube. The cube is just gonna run around and it'll be like, oh man, this would have been the best character ever, but it's just a cube. Oh my gosh. All right. So, moving right along, we have our next article. Now, we had a couple people, myself included, we headed to EA headquarters in Los Angeles to check out the new Command and Conquer, the new free-to-play RTS produced or developed by Victory Studios. And are you a big RTS gamer, Hannah?
It depends on the game, really, with me. Honestly, I like more of the turntable style myself, but that's just
Turntable? You do the DJing?
Oh, turntable. You know what I meant to say here. Come on. If you look up Noobtastic in the dictionary, I think my face would pop up right now.
Oh my, hey, it's okay. I have said so many things I did not mean to say. I am the king of putting my foot in my mouth. Don't even worry about it. Yes, turn-based. So you're more of a turn-based individual. Did you play, was there any RTS that you can remember that you played a fair amount of?
Oh gosh, there were several, but none of them that I was actually very good at. I would have to say the one that I definitely spent the most time on would be SimCity, the original one.
SimCity? That's not even like an RTS though. That's like it's like a simulation. Like it's Sim of the city.
Okay.
An RTS would be, it's alright, it's alright. I'll let that one slide. It's still real time, although you can pause it, so it's always
okay, so I guess that's not really real time. I played Halo Wars, a lot of it. I think I almost 100% achievemented that game.
Okay, that is an RTS. I will give you that. There are a lot of people who don't like Halo Wars, but I will give it that you have played an RTS. I give you that. You have the seal of approval, the star.
You cannot pause Halo Wars.
That's true. You cannot pause Halo Wars. Now, for me, I have a long history with RTSs. The RTS is probably the genre before FPS that I played the most. I started off with Age of Empires, Age of Empires 2, Age of Empires 3, what was it? Total Annihilation, all of those different games, Dune. I have a large sort of basis of RTS that I have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to RTS. And I played Brood War, and then I played some StarCraft 2, although I'm not really into StarCraft 2. It's StarCraft is too much of it gets me anxious. I can't play StarCraft because it gets me super anxious, especially when I play against other players. But Age of Empires is probably like my go-to one. And now Command & Conquer's been around for a long time too. It's since the early 90s, and they've had something like 17 games in the brand created. So the new...
Just a few.
Yeah, just a few universes, nothing much. To say that it's a pretty successful RTS brand would be an understatement. So the free version of Command & Conquer is just called Command & Conquer. It's actually the sequel to Generals, which was a Command & Conquer game that came out in the early 2000s. And we got a chance to try it. There's 3 races they get to choose from. I don't actually have them in front of me, but they're essentially one of them sort of like a futuristic EU-based race. There's another one which is sort of like terrorists. In fact, they actually have terrorist unit that have bombs strapped to them that will run up to the enemy units and explode.
Oh, wow. That's not politically correct.
You know what's funny? I was talking to developers about that. I talked to them, the exact same unit is in StarCraft 2. It's just called the Baneling. So when it's not a person and it's like an alien little insect, it's fine.
It's appropriate.
Nobody has a problem with it. The minute is it a person, it's a person, and it actually is something that like historically is accurate. There are terrorist bombers like that. It becomes, like a political point. So that's kind of interesting. I mean, kudos for them it was in the original Command & Conquer, so they just kind of ported it over. It's not like they just decided to put, terrorist bombers in there just now, but it's kind of interesting that they actually stuck with it. Although they did say that, I believe, in another country, in maybe Germany, they had to change it out so that the bomber didn't explode. He threw the satchel, and then the satchel exploded, and he ran off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they actually changed it for that. So I played it, and it's free to play. It's always online, which we'll talk about always online in the bombs. I know you have something to talk about always online in the bomb area.
Oh, I can't wait for that. But I actually heard a little rumor about Command & Conquer that it was going to have some sort of integration with Twitch TV. So do you know anything more about that?
Yes, I do. So they are going to have integrated support with Twitch TV, probably the same way Twitch TV is integrated into Firefall and into PlanetSide 2. It generally means that you can stream directly from within it. But honestly, people who stream, typically, or at least people who stream hardcore, typically don't use built-in streamers. They have their own sort of setup that it kind of gives all the overlays with their faces and all that stuff. So I don't see anybody doing it competitively, streaming like that. But I definitely could see people just kind of putzing around, using this in-game streamer. There is going to be no single player, which I know is a big factor for a lot of people. The game always had especially in the 90s when Command & Conquer was really at its full force, they always had really in-depth single-player experiences with even like live-action cutscenes with actual actors in it. Cheesy as they may be, they had actors in it.
Right.
So it was pretty cool to see that they integrated both real-life actors in the game and all that stuff. And they kind of just cut all that out. And when we talked to them there, they made no mention of adding it back in. In fact, it was pretty much stated that there wasn't going to be a single-player campaign, which I know a lot of people are going to be annoyed about. Plus the fact that... Go ahead.
Hopefully that all of this multiplayer action will be enough to pique people's interest enough that they don't really feel like they're lacking in the plot sense. So I guess we'll see how this plays out.
Yeah, in terms of... I can talk about the gameplay. And you guys can actually... Those of you watching this on YouTube, you guys can head on over to MMOBomb.com and actually check out the individual articles. There is an interview with the... head and general manager of Victory Games that's over Command & Conquer, and then there's a preview of the actual game. And when I checked the game out, in terms of its gameplay itself, it just felt like your standard Command & Conquer. Felt like any other RTS that you would play. There really is no new sort of mechanic that you wouldn't already be familiar with in some type of RTS if you're any kind of RTS player. They have the sort of general mechanic where you have a specific general, and that's sort of the free-to-play thing where you unlock new generals to kind of customize your army. And the generals have maybe a specialized unit type, so they have improved tanks. Or maybe they all have like special abilities they can unlock as the game progresses, and you get kind of general points. So you can do like airstrikes or radar and find out where units are, etc. But
Ooh, I like how that sounds.
yeah, the general gameplay itself though is pretty standard. You collect resources, you build units, you have an army. It's very traditional RTS, right? It really traditional, and they had a lot of cool, special effects. And in fact, the developers, encourage players to zoom in to look at it. But in an RTS, when are you going to have time to zoom in? I mean, are you ever? What kind of player zooms in an RTS while playing it?
I mean, even watching the StarCraft pros at MLG tournaments, they're doing 200 moves a minute. I don't know where you would squeeze in, zooming in on a bush that they've expertly crafted for you.
Funny thing, people who play StarCraft 2, they oftentimes turn the graphics all the way down. So
exactly,
they play it on
like a distraction.
Exactly, they play it on the minimal settings so that they can see all their units and everything. So what would even matter about the graphics? It's all cosmetic. You can drive through like walls. And you can attack buildings, but you can't drive through buildings with tanks, unfortunately. I'm still waiting for an RTS that allows you to, bulldoze through.
Turntable?
Yeah, turntable? Daft Punk? What? I'm still waiting for a RTS that allows you to drive, like, vehicles through buildings instead of just, like, through fences. We're getting there. We're up to fences now.
I think somebody should hire you, because if I could drive vehicles through walls, I would have the best time of my life.
I know, right? It uses the same engine as Battlefield 3, and Battlefield 3 allows tanks to drive through some walls. So
their engine is amazing, by the way.
It is, except for the weird grainy filter that they put over everything.
That's but when I'm flying, above a giant city, trying to shoot other aircrafts out of the sky, I don't really care about that sort of thing.
True. You should totally play PlanetSide 2 if you like flying in Battlefield.
It's essentially a shooter on land, isn't it?
PlanetSide 2 is a shooter on land that incorporates a lot of air battles. So there's scythes and different air vehicles all combating over huge landscapes. So I would definitely recommend, if you like flying in Battlefield, to check it out. Although the aircraft in PlanetSide 2, they act more like helicopters from Battlefield. So that's sort of the mechanics as far as like hovering and moving around and whatnot. But
definitely, I'll have a bit of a learning curve with that then.
Yeah, definitely check it out, though. Alrighty here. So, let's go ahead and move on to the questions. Or, not the questions, the weekly bombs, rather. In fact, before that, we gotta do our plugs. We forgot our plugs. That's the next thing I got here. Do you have a certain Twitter account or YouTube you'd like to plug right here?
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter. My name is Cybernova. And YouTube is the same thing, but there's some numbers thrown in there, so I just stick with the Twitter. It's more simplistic.
I did actually check out your YouTube, and you do videos about space.
I love space. I have a degree in astrophysics, and I'm a big NASA fangirl. I go to their social events, so I talk about space all day.
Have you met Neil deGrasse Tyson, or whatever?
No, I haven't met him in person, but I have met my favorite scientist, Michio Kaku, so that was kind of my big geek life moment. Awesome. It was probably the best moment of my life, actually.
I think he was on Colbert Report recently.
He was recently, and he's on the news quite often. He's very smart, so a lot of people try and pick his brain for insight about different things.
Nice. Alrighty here. So moving on to the weekly bombs. This is, of course, where we give our A bombs or our dub bombs for what we thought was cool, what wasn't cool, etc. I'm going to go ahead and let you go, Hannah, first, since you are the new sort of co-host guest. What was your A-bomb or dub-bomb?
I don't know how quickly I can say this, but SimCity. And I think I speak for everyone here when I was completely blown away by what a flop the multiplayer was with that in the social sense. Everything crashed and fell apart. I don't think I've ever seen so many memes created in such a quick amount of time as I saw about SimCity.
So let me ask you, I actually haven't purchased SimCity, but of course I've read all of the articles about how SimCity is absolutely terrible right now. But,
well, it's a simulation engine, not the game, so don't get it twisted here, you guys. I'm not hating on the game itself. Actually, the game is amazing, but the engine Glassbox, it completely flopped. They didn't develop it as well as they developed, the new aspects of the game, where you can have curved roads and this and that, but,
curved roads. Oh
yes,
my God.
Curved roads, finally.
Oh my gosh, curved roads. Now, what do you, as someone who plays SimCity, since I don't play SimCity, what do you think of the smaller city design?
I'm actually very okay with it, and they collaborated with inspiration from Google Maps to create it, so, the aerial view is actually a lot more feasible and easier to use than previous games, but it just took people so long to get in queues that it kind of negated how amazing the actual game itself was. Everyone was rage quitting.
Now, I don't actually think EA should get away with it in the sense that, I mean, people are like, well, the game's going to be okay once they fix the server issues, blah, 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 but this happened with Activision and Blizzard, this with Diablo 3, the same thing happened. You had the error, which you couldn't log in for days.
Except it didn't delete all of your saved game data, which is really kind of the kicker with this.
I know, so that's really what gives it so much of an A-bomb is that you can't play the game offline. And SimCity is like a game that has been known to be played offline for such a long time, and it's deleting saves right there. That is a perfect example of why there shouldn't be always online DRM, because you have not being able to play your saves or just completely losing your saves. Now, you're a programmer, right?
Absolutely. I actually also have a degree in computer science, and I've taught myself to code when I was a kid, and I've been doing it ever since.
So, looking at this game from an A-bomb perspective in the programming sense, can you have any insight or do you have any idea of, like, when you look at it, you're just, like, face-palming, like, oh my god, I can't believe they coded it this way, or I can't believe they did this decision to make this code, to have it, like, server-side, blah, blah, blah. Do you have anything like that?
I mean, I just was completely appalled. It's the only thing I can compare it to is if you're used to playing Xbox normally and then you pick up the controller and it's inverted, is kind of what this felt like to me as a programmer. It just seemed really backwards and just illogical. So EA has a large staff, a lot of coders on their team. So, me as one coder who's going to be very opinionated, obviously, because I have my own mind, but, it just seemed backwards to me.
Yeah. You can go ahead. Hey, there's no restrictions. There's no red tape preventing you from outright bashing EA. I have no issues doing that on this podcast. We are not controlled by puppet strings by big investors behind us. So I don't mind calling out developers or producers or publishers for the mistakes and the inevitable bad decisions that they make. Hopefully
I really think that they wanted to keep it online because they really wanted performance benefits, but I think that it kind of negated the fact that the game is so good in the first place, and only giving players one option, it really is turning a lot of hardcore fans of the franchise off.
Yeah, honestly, I might give the game a go if there was some kind of like offline patch, but I know they'll never do that. So right now I'm just content with looking at it from the sidelines and eating popcorn. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, there's just such a massive amount of just computational need that goes into this that I think they rushed to push out, and they really should have developed it more. And I think it would have been one of the best games that had been released this year if they had just taken a little bit more time. I really wish that developers would focus on quality instead of quantity. And that's a trend that, unfortunately, I see kind of going wayward these days.
That's unfortunate of being a part of a big publisher like EA. They have deadlines. You have to meet deadlines, and inevitably things are missed. Features are not implemented, and servers crash. Now, my A-bomb da bomb is an A-bomb for a tactical intervention. Now, I believe you actually talked about this. I know you talked about this. I wrote this in your script.
I did, actually.
Tactical Intervention just recently went into a beta. It was made by one of the original creators of Counter-Strike, Lee. I forget his first name. And, yeah, he basically made this in collaboration with a Korean company. It was supposed to be sort of like the Counter-Strike, but more kind of Rainbow Six-ish, I guess you could say. I actually did it for one of the Bomb Lives. I played it, and it was terrible. And
it was a relatively short beta, too, I understand.
Yeah, that was the closed beta. The open beta began right after that, so that was just a short closed beta. But they originally had a closed beta like a year ago. They had a closed beta a year ago that had the exact same sort of like bugs. In fact, it may have been even buggier now than it was back then. But
that's not good.
No. So it was super buggy like a year ago, and I played it back then, and I was like, whatever. And so it came out. I was like, well, let's see how it's actually done. Let's see if it's any better. And oh my gosh, it was so bad. The recoil is terrible. The server was buggy. The new mode, the car chase mode, was hilarious, but not because it was fun, but because it was just downright like silly. Like car physics were all over the place. You couldn't run people over at times.
But you could rappel. You didn't like rappelling down the sides of buildings or
rappelling
mountains
was
to get
fun.
away from people?
Rappelling was fun, except it was extremely hard to do. And when you rappelled into somewhere, you had to like turn around and unhook yourself, which meant that if you rappelled in, you only could use your pistol when you rappelled, all right? So you rappel in, you had your pistol, and then you couldn't do anything. You're like, if a guy was there, your pistol couldn't kill jack crap. Like, it couldn't kill absolutely anything with that pistol. It was a pea shooter. So you had to unhook yourself, because if you didn't unhook yourself, you could never switch over to your assault rifle, despite the fact that you were no longer rappelling, you were standing up.
See, that's so unfortunate to hear, because that's something that I know they were heavily promoting, saying, we have this new feature, this new ability that you can do in this, and apparently it flopped.
Yeah. The death camera was horrible. The death camera often showed, like, it was, like, clipping in the ground, or it would, like, death camera over to, like, you could have, like, dogs as pets, which is actually a pretty cool little mechanic. And it would, like, go onto the dog, and then the dog would just, like, glitch around the screen as you watched it in the death camera, and you couldn't change who you watched in the death camera. It was just all kinds of awful. It was absolutely terrible. I cannot believe that game is actually going to be released in that state, especially from the developers. Like it's being published, I believe, by OG Planet, and I mean, I don't know how publishers could just let something like that just come out like that. It's such in poor state. Ugh.
So basically, you're saying mistakes were made.
Mistakes were often made. Many times, unfortunately. Big mistakes were made. Alright, so going ahead and move on, we're going to take a look at the member bombs. These are, of course, the ones that you guys submit. You guys can, of course, submit them in the description of the...
And we encourage it, because we definitely want to know what you guys are thinking. That's what this is all about.
Yeah, the member bomb is all about what you guys say. If you guys don't say anything to us, then I have nothing to put here, and then I just have to, like, whistle for, like, 10 minutes or something like that.
And then things are going to get weird, so please
things are gonna
talk
get super
to us.
Things are going to get turntable.
Exactly.
That's going to turn into, like...
better myself.
I wonder if that's going to turn into, like, our thing. Like, the other free-to-play cast had Mounted and had bacon stuff and, like, get off my porch kind of stuff. And we're going to have turntables. That's going to be our
I think we
thing.
could insert a nice little audio graphic, a little scratch sound. Before the bomb.
I am not going to do that. That is extra work for me. And
I might do that.
You might do
put
that?
it past me.
Okay. All right. Find me a scratch table sound and I will go ahead. Scratch table. Scratch turn. Whatever.
There's
Turntable
probably
sound.
an app for that.
Yeah, there is. Although we use Google Android phones, so it doesn't really work with the iPhone stuff. But starting off with, we have American Ace with a dub bomb to Spunkify for picking up the free-to-play cash show and keeping it rolling. No A-bombs this week, because nothing made me angry enough yet. He says. Yet. It's soon, basically. That will happen soon. So thank you very much, American Ace, for the bomb for me and to Hannah. You are, of course, a co-host here. We're picking up the free-to-play cash show and keeping it rolling. Really appreciate that, American Ace. You were on the member bomb last week, so thank you for being consistent. I like that. Would you like to take the next one?
I'd love to. Now, this next one is from Vuko88, and his bomb is for Path of Exile Race Season 1 and the game as a whole, and he even referenced one of our articles.
So yeah, the article he referenced, or actually I referenced that article for you, so you could look it up.
But well,
I didn't. Sorry, I probably should have made that a little.
You did your homework.
Yeah, I probably should have made that a little bit more clear that he didn't actually reference that. Although, hey, if you wanted to do the legwork, that would have been pretty awesome. Yeah. So Path of Exile Race Season 1. Do you know anything about that?
I haven't played that game, but I've heard some mixed reviews.
The game is pretty fun. I thoroughly enjoy it. It's sort of like what Diablo 3 should have been if it wanted to be like Diablo 2. But the race season 1 he's talking about essentially is they're holding sort of like these mini competitions on fresh servers where players can race to a particular level or race to a particular zone. And the first player to do so gets like special rewards that no other player gets. So they're kind of like competitions. And I think that's pretty cool because oftentimes we see, I mean, think about every time there's a new expansion for World of Warcraft, there's a race to level 90, a race to level 100, or whatever level they're on now. There's always this race, but it's never sort of created. The race is never created by the developers. It's just sort of created by the community. So,
and that's what's so great. I love seeing this player-centric competition going on, and it's really interesting to just see how a community is going to receive a game and make it their own. So I get really excited when I see things like this, and, you know, I'd love to see more things about it.
Funny, though, the Race Season 1 is actually created by Grinding Gear Games. So they're actually going ahead and assisting the community, I guess you could say, in creating these sort of fun competitions that, generally speaking, are just made by the community members. So they're going to have the race, which you can race, like I said. They also have other competitions I think they're going to do where it's like whoever can get the farthest in level without being killed by other players. So you'll be able to like enter each other's zone or in each other's server, basically, and kill each other in PvP while you're trying to complete a level.
Yes.
So I think that's pretty awesome. And Vuko, I definitely agree with you on the bomb for that. Path of Exile is a great action RPG. Now, this last one here, you helped me out with this before we started, but I'm going to have you help me out again because time has passed and I have forgotten the name.
All right. So I'm going to go with what I'm assuming this is pronounced like. So maybe Zugmestral. I don't know if I was pronouncing that right, but that's the best I can do for you.
Zugmestral?
Zugmestral.
Now, why are you so good at pronouncing that?
Well, who knows? I could be completely off, and if I am, then I'm sure we're going to see a comment from him about it, so I do apologize, but that's the best I can do right now without, you know, the proper phonetic characters on there.
Although I do have to say, you are an excellent person to do this since you are, actually, you're from Sweden. So you have the capability of doing those really complicated, like stringy words. Kudos to you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So Zugmestral, I just butchered that, but whatever. He says, massive bomb to the new cast. You have some pretty big shoes to fill, but having followed Spunkify from that other channel, yes, that other channel, I can only look forward to more free-to-play casts. Thank you very much, Zugmestral. I appreciate that's close enough, whatever. I appreciate the massive bomb to both me and Hannah and our future guests because, of course, it's not going to be just me and Hannah. I'm going to have other people on here as well, just like
I know. No more intimate fireside podcast chats.
It's all right. You'll always have a special place in my heart as the first individual, you know. We popped the... I'm not going to go ahead and finish that.
Let's just move quickly on.
Yeah, go ahead. The weekly questions from the viewers. So the question of the week last week was, what free-to-play game would you like to see get a Game of the Year edition, and is it okay to do so? So Nils Kohlbergs was first. He said, if League of Legends would release all champions, all champions. Yes, all champions. For about $100, then I definitely would consider spending money on that game. Funny enough, they actually do have like a pack you can buy.
They do, actually.
I bought that. I bought that when the game was new, when the game was brand new, and it's like the special edition or whatever. I think that's like $29 or $30, or actually now maybe just $20. But yeah, I definitely would like to see that. It's one of the things that I think Dota got really right, Dota 2 specifically, is that they gave you all the heroes for free, and then, you know, you can just spend money. To me, it just means I can free up more money to spend on cosmetic items to look amazing, which I'm all about that. You know, that's fine.
Yeah, customization is definitely the biggest incentive for me to keep playing a game. The only factor with this League of Legends question is that they release so many new characters, I would end up spending $100 more within the year.
Funny, my first really big YouTube channel I did, League Top 10, that channel was all about League of Legends, and I would do a new video every time there was a new champion, and that got actually pretty expensive because I literally bought a new champion every 2 weeks, and sometimes I didn't have the RP or the IP to buy it, which means I had to spend something like at least $10 every 2 weeks.
IRL.
Money, yep. All kinds of money. I've probably spent something like $500 on League of Legends or something. I know people who have spent over 1,000. I don't even want to know how many.
I'm just going to only think about it in terms of riot points, so it won't feel like real money.
Yes, RP, that arbitrary number that doesn't tell me exactly how much money I've actually used.
And you don't even notice how much you're spending. That's how they get you.
That is how they get you. They don't show an actual dollar amount. They're like, oh, RP points, whatever.
Until you memorize the conversion rate, ignorance is bliss.
Right. Although you got to factor in those bonus RP points.
And then there comes the skins. Don't even get me started.
Oh my gosh. I want, bunny girl ribbon, blah, blah, blah. All those different skins available.
Astronaut Teemo, enough said.
Oh, man, too many Teemo skins. Too many Teemo. You can spend $100 just on Teemo skins.
Want all the Teemos.
So coming up next, we have Zhao Yun. And his question was, his response to the question was, as for the question of the week, I would say World of Tanks in terms of which free-to-play game he would like to see a Game of the Year edition. Although I think it would be crazy getting all the tanks for free and their modifications, and I would assume it would also make World of Tanks pay to win, but I'll just go with World of Tanks. So yeah, I guess World of Tanks would be another good choice. They have so many tanks available in that game. And by that extension, I guess you could say World of Warplanes, or even you could say War Thunder, which is the sort of World of Warplanes competition, although World of Warplanes isn't out yet, so there is no competition technically. But yeah.
And you know what? I actually have spent a lot of time playing World of Tanks, not only at events. I first saw it debuted for me personally at E3 last year. That was the first event I went to where I was able to kind of play it hands-on myself, not at home. And I would love to have all the tanks. So Zhao Yun, I'm with you 100%. I would love to get all of the modifications because I like to feel like a Banff when I'm running through the map with those things. Although it kind of makes me a little bit destructive.
Yeah. I honestly never could get into World of Tanks, but I definitely could see how having all those tanks would be very useful, especially having all the upgrades, like the additional guns and whatnot. So World of Tanks, definitely we're going to keep that one in mind for Game of the Year edition. You hear that? Wargaming.net, do a year edition. Give it now, please. Thanks. Okay.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Okay, thanks. Bye. So Shaso. Shaso, I don't know.
That's kind of a tongue twister.
Yeah, that's why I was like, Shaso, 33, he says, I think it's fair for free-to-play games to offer the Game of the Year bundles as long as they're not pay to win and as long as they're offered without a limited time to purchase them. If the developers stamp a time limit, to buy these bundles, then I feel like they're pressuring you to buy them or you're left out. I do indeed agree with that. If you're going to have a Game of the Year edition, if you're going to have anything that unlocks everything, it should be a persistent option for everyone to purchase. Because I definitely don't think allowing it just for a limited amount of time, that would give you like a select group of individuals like a huge bonus boost over everyone, right? Like if no one could ever get that ever again, that doesn't make any sense. Although Game of the Year sort of makes it seem like that's really limited because it's the Game of the Year edition. But I agree. I definitely think that free-to-play games should have Game of the Year editions, especially if it's a game that's proven to be balanced and that you wouldn't sort of have any kind of pay-to-win aspects to it if you did indeed offer sort of like an all-inclusive package.
Absolutely. The last thing you want to do is regret an impulse buy.
Yes, indeed. So, moving to our final thing here, the question of the week for this week. Now that we've gone ahead and covered last week's question, do you find it fun to play turn-based strategy games or RTS games that do not have any single-player campaigns and focus entirely on multiplayer? So we talked a little bit earlier about, of course, Command & Conquer and not having a single-player experience, completely going multiplayer, always online. So do you actually think it would be fun to play a turn-based strategy game or an RTS game that doesn't have any single-player campaign? Well, I'm assuming also, speaking of, turn-based Cyanide's game, Dogs of War Online, that probably won't also have a single-player campaign just simply because war games, tabletop-style war games, typically don't, players make their own sort of single-player. But there are other games such as like Heroes of Might and Magic that have campaigns, etc. And what do you think? Do you think that...
I'm not about it. In all honesty, for me, I like a story and I like something that's plot driven because that keeps me interested in the game. There are times where I feel like going bonkers and just going ham and going hard in a map and, just shooting everybody in sight. But at the same time, I like a bit of plot in there. I like something that balances it out. And I think it gives a nice subtle nuance between the hardcore action and letting you take a little bit of a breather. So when you get back to it, maybe you'll be better at the shooting than you were before, the slashing or whatever the type of game you'd be playing might be. So for me personally, I want campaign. I want story.
You're a Mass Effect player. Of course you want campaign.
Of course.
Of course you want campaign. And I have to agree with that too. Honestly, when you're dealing with like RTS games, turn-based strategy games, playing against a multiplayer, whether it be AI or whether it be, an actual player, that's like a whole different mindset than playing a campaign. A campaign is very much take your time, kind of like progress, especially with RTS games. It's not all about micromanaging as quickly as possible. There's bursts of that, of course. But it's always about, getting that story sort of soaking in the world. You're spending so much time in it. It might well be good to find out exactly what each unit's, motive is and what exactly the universe behind everything, why things are the way they are. And in fact, that's why I like to play StarCraft simply for the single player aspect. I know StarCraft doesn't have like the most perfect storyline, but I do enjoy it. I like to play that far more than I like to play the multiplayer aspect of that, and I hope to see some free-to-play games in the future that are RTS-based that do offer some type of single-player campaign, because I think there is a market for having both balanced, especially in the free-to-play market. So that is the question of the week, guys. Go ahead and remember you can reply down below in the YouTube comments with the answer to your question of the week. Or you can go to MMOBomb.com once we put it up there and reply in a post. We'll be sure to go through and look at those and put some of those up for you guys to actually get on the podcast next episode here. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start wrapping up this week's episode of Free to Play Podcast. I was, of course, Spunkify. And for Hannah, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate you being here.
And thanks for having me. It was a blast to get to talk about all this stuff with you guys. And, definitely leave us some comments. We want to know what you're thinking because we wouldn't have anything to talk about without you guys.
Yeah, this is definitely a show that is integrated with you guys. You are just as much as part of the show as we are as hosts. I want to thank you guys for all the support that you've given us, being the new host here. Hope you guys enjoyed this first episode with the new cast. Let us know what you thought, what we could improve on, etc. There's always room to improve, guys. There's always room. If you want to follow me, specifically Spunkify on Twitter, you can follow me just twitter.com/Spunkify, I believe. I do tweets occasionally, but I might do more if people actually follow me more. Or you can hit me up on my email at michael@MMOBomb.com. Yes, my first name is Michael, and you can hit me up at MMOBomb.com. But anyways, for Hannah and Spunkify, myself, until next time, we'll see you guys later. Spunkify out.